Hello, everyone. Welcome to the You've Got Sales podcast, solo episode today about a subject I think is very interesting and complete common sense. And to be honest, I'll be doing myself out of business just releasing it. But I think it's important for leaders and sales leaders, anybody who's a leader, anyone who hires people, because today I want to talk about how you can hire a better quality person who's more relevant for your business and your roles in less time without having to use a recruiter. I honestly believe this subject is one of the biggest ROIs you can have in business because it doesn't really cost you that much. It just takes a little bit of upskilling and a little bit of thought and energy, and you can completely transform your hiring process. A lot of people out there, they don't want to use recruiters. I get it. We're really expensive, but they have to because they don't know how to attract talent for their business without us. And today, I want to show you how you can hire people, better people, without having to use us. Not every single time, but 60% at least more of the time you won't have to use a recruiter. And it's just by changing one small thing, and that is writing better job adverts and creating better marketing around your roles and business for people to apply to. I'm not talking about employer brand. I'm talking about your actual attraction model for people coming to work for your business. As we all know, people are a company's most important asset. Without people, you cannot grow. You do not exist. You do not have customers. Yet, I've been working in recruitment for 10 years, and I don't think I've seen a single company in that time actually take the time to learn or understand or put the energy towards attracting those better people for their business. Everyone knows you get better people, you have more success. Companies say they want better people, but they very rarely actually put the time into learning how to attract better people. When companies think about hiring, they think about the interview process. Well, the interview process is just the back end of the funnel. They never think of the front end of that funnel, which is the candidate attraction piece. And the way I like to communicate this with leaders is think about your candidate attraction in the same way you think of your customer acquisition. Because the process of getting a customer, a loyal, good quality customer, is the same as getting a high quality person for your business. The process is exactly the same. Instead of selling a product or a service, you're just selling your company and your role. And some companies go into this thinking, we don't need to sell our company or role. The fact that we're hiring at all is enough. Well, maybe back in the 90s or 2000s, but these days, the market is so saturated with roles for companies who are bigger than yours, offering more than you can in terms of benefits and salary and more attractive positions, that you can't afford to rest on your laurels. Just the name on the door simply isn't enough anymore. You have to give people good reasons to join your company, because switching role, and you know this, when you're potentially moving role, changing your job is one of the biggest life decisions that you can make for you and your family. There's more riding on that decision than almost any purchase that you can make for a product or service, really, bar a house or maybe a car, whatever it might be. So we do not put that same amount of emphasis in how we should sell that opportunity as we do a product. If you did that with your customer acquisition process, you wouldn't sell any products whatsoever. So all it is just taking that process that you do with customer acquisition, with sales and marketing, applying those basic principles and putting that towards your candidate attraction techniques and model. If you do that, by the end of this episode, I promise you that you will learn how to reduce your recruiter spend by 60% or more. Imagine what that could be for your business. Tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds per year saved in recruitment spend. And on the back of that, you will get access to better, higher quality people who are more relevant for your current role and situation than you've ever had before. And like I say, it's just by changing the way that you do your adverts in there. Okay. So first of all, let me tell you my quick journey with this for my own business, because my own business was struggling with its adverts a few years ago. So when I first started in recruitment, I worked for a big recruitment company, had a lot of great training, but the one thing they never taught us on was actually attracting candidates, which is crazy considering our job is all about marketing jobs to the market. We're never taught how to market a job to candidates. It's just not what we're told. So by the time I started my own business after 5 years, I'd taken some time out of recruitment and gone into marketing, launched a couple of e-commerce businesses. And I'd learned a lot about biopsychology, about marketing in general, copywriting specifically, how people actually buy from reading anything. And that's what somebody's doing with your role. They are buying your opportunity by reading what they're seeing on a job board or LinkedIn, wherever it may be. And I took that knowledge and put it with my existing recruitment skills. And when I first started Charter Recruitment, our adverts were really struggling. And if you look at all job postings globally, there is a trend where the placement rate from job postings online are going through the floor, completely going through the floor, to the point where less than 10% of roles are filled by postings. And I find this as a recruiter. Most of the time when I'm working with a company, they've tried to advertise the role themselves and they've got poor quality applicants, irrelevant applicants, very few qualified applicants applying. And you're always going to get that. But the reason for that is because the job adverts read horrendously and nobody wants to apply to them. And I know this because this is what we had in my business. I like to say to people that really I'm a marketer who places people in jobs, really. And even my adverts were poor, and we were converting as a business. About 10% of our roles were being placed by adverts, and 90% of them were having to be placed by headhunting, which is a much more time-intensive process to getting people. So when we looked at our adverts, like most recruiters actually do these days, we looked at it and went, is it even worth us investing in these job boards anymore? Because they're expensive and they yield very little results. And most recruiters have completely got rid of them altogether. But I thought, let's take a different route. I got some mentorship from a copywriter, and that person really opened my eyes into the words that you write really matter a lot. And the words that you write make people feel a certain way, think a certain way, and that will have a direct correlation to the quality of applicants and the quantity of applicants that you're getting, which isn't rocket science, right? We know this already. Like if you create poor marketing for customers, you get less customers. If you write a horrible message to your wife, she's annoyed. If you write a lovely message to your wife, she loves you and she feels good. Like the words that we write matter. But we do not think about that at all when it comes to job postings. We don't think about the one thing that attracts people to our businesses at all. So it completely goes out the window. A lot of people listening to this might think, oh, our adverts work just fine. Well, if you're having to use recruiters a lot and you're getting poor quality applicants, which I'm guaranteed you probably all are, I can tell you right now, your adverts are not fine. We've been so used to just sticking up any old rubbish and thinking that that's good enough. If we did that again for our customers, if you never improved that process about what you're putting out in there in the world, that would be insane. but we do that for your most important asset, to attract them for your business. And it does have poor and negative connotations. So for us, when we changed our adverts overnight, I was not expecting a big change. I was maybe expecting a couple of percentage increase. Overnight, just by changing how we write the words on that piece of paper, we went from filling 10% of roles through adverts to 65% of roles with adverts. And that's where we've been for the last almost 4 years. And it's not because the market changed. It's not because adverts suddenly became better overall. If you look at all the metrics, they're going to the floor, and ours are going through the roof. And it's not just us, there's other recruiters doing it as well. And it's just by, like I say, writing better quality adverts. Now imagine what impact that could have on your team and your business, that you could fill 65% more roles without having to use a recruiter. And those roles through an advert are filled within 30 days most of the time. And they're with highly relevant people. Overnight, we tracked the applicants, and overnight we were getting between 3 and 5 times more qualified applicants for the particular role that we were getting than we had previously. And we were getting about 45-50% more applicants in total. That's not the metric you want to worry about. The metric you want to worry about is the qualified applicants, people who are actually suitable for your role. 3 to 5 times more just by changing the words that we write. Not rocket science either. So going to go through some of those things on the job postings that you can make. And this is, I'm going to use sales as an example here because I'm a sales recruiter, but this works for anything. We've used this for multiple different disciplines. It works for all of them. It works for all of them because it taps into basic biopsychology that every human has, that every human buys in a similar way. People buy through stimulating their amygdala and how they feel about what they're reading. And then you also stimulate the neocortex, is the logical part of the brain. So the emotional and the logical part of the brain. At the moment, I can promise you your adverts don't stimulate either one of those things. They'll be boring people to absolute hell. You know this when you're applying to roles at yourself. And the feedback I get from candidates is all the same. The quality of the adverts is so awfully poor that's out there. They don't excite the reader at all. Like I said, you're trying to get somebody to change their entire life to join your business, and you couldn't be writing them in a more boring way. We often joke that we just call them professional ransom notes because they're like a laundry list of must-haves with almost nothing in return. They bore people to death, quite honestly. And as a result, yeah, companies have to use us because they can't do the recruitment themselves. It costs them a lot of money. And then they get upset that they have to use recruiters and yada, yada, yada. You can fix all of that. Just write better adverts. So what am I talking about? First of all, you've got to understand how the talent pool works. You've essentially got 3 types of people who are in the talent pool. People who are actively looking for roles. They're the people who are on job boards all day, applying. Maybe not all day, but they're actively looking for a job. Maybe they've been made redundant. Maybe they're just not any good. Maybe they're a job hopper. Then you've got people who are not looking at all. And then you've got people who would be open to an opportunity if the right thing came around. Now, people who are actually active in the market applying to roles every day equates to something between 5 and 10% of people in any given market, sometimes less. In our markets, I would say even less than that, maybe 1% of people. But the vast majority of people are not looking, but would be open to an opportunity if it was an improvement or a change from where they're currently at. Okay. Now, if you're thinking about this for salespeople, the best salespeople, what are they doing all day? Well, they're not sat on job boards all day. That's for sure. Those people are out there working long hours, probably traveling, speaking to customers all the time, hitting targets, happy in their role. They're solving problems now and making money for their companies. That's the type of salesperson that you want to try and get in front of. The person who's in their pants applying to 50 roles a day probably isn't the right type of person. Okay. So that's sort of 5 to 10% of people who are actively applying for roles. The vast majority of those people are not any good, which is why when you put an advert posting up, you get all of these completely unqualified, job hoppy, horrendous salespeople applying for your roles, because they're the ones who are just sat spam applying everything. They're not reading. They're just spam applying everything until something comes good. Now, you do get good people who are active, of course, but here's the problem. You are one of, at any given time, tens of thousands of companies looking for exactly the same person. So if you're a job seeker, you go onto a job board, you've got potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of adverts to read. You're not going to do that. You're going to be spending very little time on those adverts if you are. So why should someone join you as opposed to these hundreds or thousands of other companies? What is it that you can offer that are going to make them stop them in their tracks, make them read the entire advert and then apply? Good people are not going to read any old nonsense. Good people respond to good recruitment marketing. Now, the group of people who, let's just call them passive people, people who aren't looking, occasionally one of these people will become active. And now they can become active for 10 minutes, an hour, a day, a week. Maybe they've had an argument with their boss. Maybe their commission structure's changed. Maybe the company's maybe not looking too good and they're just starting to look. They'll start jumping onto job boards. These are the people that you want to get their attention. You want to get their attention, convert their attention and give them an offer to. They might be spending minutes on those job boards. This is your time to hook them. But if your adverts are written like ransom notes, they're just not going to read and they're not going to apply, which is why, again, you have to come back to a recruiter, because we approach this process differently than maybe how you approach it. What do I mean by that? A lot of recruiters, not all of us, we approach hiring like a sales or marketing process, because like I said earlier, the process is exactly the same. What do I mean by a sales process? Well, in your sales process, you've got inbound methods and outbound methods, right? Your inbound methods is your marketing that you put out there, your lead generation, and your outbound is your cold calling, right? That's your prospecting, new business. Recruitment works exactly the same way. Hiring works the same way. You've got your job postings, which is lead generation. People are applying. There is a lead. And then you've got headhunting, which is your cold calling, prospecting. Now, obviously, you can't do the headhunting. You have to do the inbound lead gen. This is what I'm saying. Think about it like a sales process. So that's your inbound lead gen tool that you need. And the hint is in the name. It's a job advert. You're advertising an opportunity. It doesn't mean bore the reader to death. You're advertising something for someone to buy into and apply to, which is a life-changing decision for them. So the way the recruiters approach that, some recruiters approach that, is we approach that like a sales process. When you're going out to a customer, what is it that you do? Well, the first thing you don't do is talk about yourself. You do the same thing in your marketing. If you went to a customer, cold calling a customer or marketing, and all you did was talk about yourself, you wouldn't sell a single product. Yet, when you advertise a opportunities for your business, what do you talk about? Yourself. And you barely talk about what's in it for the candidate. Think of them as a customer. What does a customer care about? What's in it for them? What does a potential person looking to join your business care about? What's in it for them? Not about what's in it for you. Not about when you were established, not about, you're a market leader in this and et cetera, et cetera. People don't care about that. No one cares about your company at the beginning, just like none of your customers care about your company. They don't. If I came to your business as a recruiter and all I spoke about was myself, do you care about my business? No. It's my job to speak about your business. You know that for your customer. You just got to do the same thing with a job seeker. You can talk about your company later when they're bought in, but that initial advertising bit, when you're trying to get their attention, that's got to be about them. So that's what I mean when you approach it like a sales and marketing process. Initially, that first part of the funnel, before the interviewing, before the screening, that first part has to be about them. Why aren't you currently doing this at the moment? Because you're outsourcing your hiring to people who you think know how to hire, and they don't, because they approach it like an admin task, not a sales or marketing task. I'm talking about outsourcing this to HR or even other recruiters. You assume going to HR that they know how to write advertisements that attract people. That's not their skill set. HR people are not sales people. They're not marketing people. They're admin focused and HR focused people. They have not got the first clue when it comes to copywriting or creating attractive offerings. How do I know that? Well, would you trust your HR people to write your sales or marketing copy? Imagine if you did. What would that do to conversions for your products if you let a HR person write that? It's not a slight at them. It's not criticizing them. It's actually unfair on them, because and it's not your fault either, because you don't obviously know this information. You assume that they are good at this. They're not. They're not. It's not part of their job role. And a lot of HR people I speak to get an absolute hammering from line managers and leaders saying that they just keep on giving them poor quality people. It's not them in the first place who should be thinking about this. They're not hiring experts. Okay. The same thing, even if you use a lot of recruiters, like I've just told you, I work for one of the biggest recruitment companies in the world, and they didn't teach us a single thing about how to write adverts. So you're outsourcing it to recruiters or HR people, both of which very few of them in the market actually know how to advertise opportunities and market people. And because of that, what they do is instead of writing a job advert, is that they just put a job description online. Now, a job description and a job advert are two different things. I like to think of them like a cereal box in a supermarket. The advert is the front of the cereal box. Excuse me. The front of the cereal box is colorful. It's attractive. It hooks people in. The back of the cereal box is like the job description. That's the more information. That's where this product is made, how much nutritional information is in it. Now, if you turned around all those cereal boxes and had the back facing the customers, how would that affect conversions of customers? It would completely destroy that cereal box, that cereal company, right? A job advert is there to attract someone to apply, to buy. Okay? Job advert is there to sell your opportunity. The job description is there to tell about the opportunity. And a job description is usually an internal HR document that is very boring, but very factual, often way too long and dull. And that is what you want to send to people after they've applied. You can still use it, but it shouldn't be the thing that's forward-facing of your entire company and opportunity. They're too long, they're too dull, they're too boring, and they're not written in a way that is meant to attract people, interest people, get them bought in and want to apply. Now, there seems like a bit of a fallacy here, because you're going to turn around to me and go, well, we've attracted people from our adverts. Absolutely, you will attract people from your adverts. Some people are just desperate and they've spammed enough buttons, or maybe your advert just looked particularly good at that particular time to them and you got lucky. Getting lucky, you can get lucky getting a customer, right? It's about improving the process. And 10% of the time you will be lucky, which is the average for placement rates from adverts. But let's increase that to 60 to 70% of the time. And it's not going to work every single time, because a lot of the market is on timing, or maybe your opportunity is just not actually that attractive no matter what you do. There's lots of variables, but if you can increase it 6 or 7-fold, it's worth the time and investment of just writing slightly better words. So job adverts, not job descriptions. Approach it like a sales process, not like a HR admin process. Okay. So what are some of the things that you can do that will make people want to actually apply and stop people in their tracks and make them want to be part of your company? Well, the key to an advert that gets people excited to want to be part of your business is the benefits that you add in there. And I'm not just talking about benefits like bonus, car, healthcare. Of course, these things are all important, but there's softer benefits as well. And every single thing about your company and your role is a benefit if you frame it that way. So what you want to do is just literally, you start off with a hook. We'll talk about hooks in a second. A hook is getting somebody's attention. And then you're just listing benefit after benefit after benefit. A little bit about you and the company, apply, okay? 90% of it should be focused on their wants, their desires. There's somebody on the other end of that computer who's reading this who wants a change in their life. If you just don't write it all about yourself, like I said, no one gives a hoot about your company. They care about what's in it for them, and how you make it interesting for them is showing all the things that are of benefit to them. So how do you write benefits? Well, first of all, you've got to think about the type of person that you're wanting to attract. Again, going back to sales and marketing, you think about your ideal candidate, your ideal customer profile. You're doing the same thing here. Who's your ideal candidate profile? So as an example, if you're looking for younger people to join your business, younger people are motivated by different things than older people. So you want to tailor the advert to what young people want. And typically young people want progression, money, development. They want to work for companies that are tech savvy. There's a whole host of things that gets young people motivated. Likewise, people who, if you want an older person, more senior person, they're motivated by different things. They're motivated by legacy, fulfillment, mentorship, pension, holiday, that type of thing. People are attracted to different things. I call this putting the bat signal up in the sky. What you put up in the sky or on job board, you will attract ultimately. And the great thing about the benefits is that if you word them in the correct way, they'll also start filtering people out, that people who don't want that type of thing. So what do I mean by this? Let's take something that we all understand, working from home or remote working. Remote working, if for your opportunity, if you think that's the biggest benefit for someone, that's what you want to start with. Here is our company is all about remote working. You get to work from home. That's the benefit. Now, if you make that crystal clear that it's remote working, guess who you won't have applying to it? People who want to be in the office. You're going to put a bat signal out in the sky for people who want remote working and not people who are going to work in the office. Okay. Likewise, working in the office full time. That bat signal up in the sky. If you make that the primary benefit for someone joining your company, being part of an office environment, a fun culture where you get to help others, be part of something interesting, a buzz, lots of social events. You put that up in the sky, you're going to get people who want to be in the office, and you're not going to get people who want to be remote. So you will get people who are closer towards your ideal candidate profile applying from that benefit alone, just making it crystal clear. Now, how do you write a benefit? Goes back to biopsychology that we spoke about before. Okay, you want to engage the emotional part of their brain and the logical part of their brain. So when you write a benefit, there is two main parts to it. You've got the emotional / lifestyle benefit of that. So if we take remote working, the lifestyle benefit is that you get to work from home, spend more time with your family, not have to spend hundreds of pounds per month on petrol. They're the lifestyle benefits. And then you follow that up with the evidence that supports that that's going to actually happen. And that will engage the logical part of the brain. And that's very simple. For the remote working example, you get to work from home, spend time with your family, spend more time with your loved ones, wake up with that morning coffee and not have to rush out, because all 120 people in our business have been working remote for the last 5 years. It's a core value of our business. That's the evidence. That evidence is that you're not lying, that's true. Because a lot of people, if you just write the lifestyle benefit, oh, you get to work, you get to be with your family all the time, and imagine spending more time with your kids. Just engaging the emotional part people will believe, they'll be sus of what you're actually writing. They won't believe it. They'll think it's too good to be true, and they'll go, sounds like BS to me. So you have to back it up with the evidence that supports the logical part of the brain, which then supports the emotional part of the brain and goes, right, apply to it. I'll give you an example in a couple of other examples of benefits. One of the biggest benefits that you can have for people is progression. Okay, everybody wants to grow and progress. All right, so I was working with a company who needed a sales director, and this person was going to eventually progress to the managing director. Now, they'd been advertising this role for 6 or 7 months, and they just hadn't got a quality person there in there. And not once do they mention that you get to become the MD at some point. That's the major. If someone's a sales director, becoming managing director is one of the biggest selling points you can have. And again, if you put that in the advert, it's going to stop people who don't want to be MD applying. So you're going to get the right type of sales director wanting to apply for you. So we just changed it, and the emotional benefit of progression like that was that you're going to be the one steering the ship. You're going to be the one who's going to have complete control over the business, your strategy, your way. You're going to have complete control over your life, how much work you want to do from home, how much you want to do in the office, where the company goes. Your voice is going to be you doing everything. That's the emotional benefit, control. Somebody wants control over that business and their life. The evidence is that the current managing director is retiring in the next 2 to 3 years. So then you're reading that going, well, then that's going to actually really happen. That's why the benefits have to be split up in the emotional plus the evidence side of things. If you just, an example for salespeople is, and this is where sales adverts fall down. If you have an advert in there which says you can earn 6 figures in bonus or commission, if you just say 6-figure earnings, most people look at that and go, bullshit, because there's so many commission structures which just lie out there. They just go, bullshit. And by the way, if you're hiring salespeople and you don't put any numbers or figures about what they can earn at all, guess what? You're not going to get many good applicants. Like, you have to get specific numbers and figures about what they can earn. So instead of just saying 6 figures, I'll give you an example of one that we did, which resulted in a company actually taking on 3 different people from just one role at the same time. There was someone in the business called Tom who had been earning 6 figures in the last 2 years, and he was able to build his own house from the ground up with that money and fund his wedding to his child for his high school sweetheart. So that's what we put in the advert. Tom was able to build his own house from the ground up, completely changing his life, and was able to fund his own wedding with his childhood sweetheart because he's been earning 6 figures over the last 2 years in your new role. Emotional lifestyle benefit. Somebody else who's done it. Evidence. He's been doing it for the last 2 years. He's been able to buy his own home. And we just finished it off with it. We want the same for you. We want you to buy your first home. We want you to marry your childhood sweetheart, and you can do it here because Tom's doing it. That makes that whole thing more real to the applicant, rather than just saying 6 figures or bonus, which is what most adverts do, just bonus. Come on, get specific. So the benefits are the key part of this, and you just want to get as many of these benefits in there as possible. Lifestyle benefit evidence, da-da-da-da-da. Get as many of those in there as possible. Next thing you want to do is make the adverts shorter. Most job descriptions are 2,000 words long. Oh God, they're boring. They need to be 800, 900 max. 800, 900 max. People have got thousands of adverts to get through. If they see a giant wall of text that's 2,000 words long, they ain't going to read it. You wouldn't read it if you're busy. Even if you weren't busy, it's just too much. So make them shorter, okay? Also, it matters how you set up that page, the structure. If you have big blocks of text, if you have 900 words in one piece of text, No one's going to read it. The brain cannot. It's called visual psychology. The brain cannot take that much information in on a computer screen or on a phone. Break up the text. Short sentences, 10 to 12 words max per sentence. People read downwards. Break up that text. Bullet points, line breaks, anything you can do. Bolds and italics. Break up the text. Headings, subheadings. That helps break up the text. It makes it much more manageable to read. So you want to break it up in different ways to make it more readable, basically. Next thing you want to do, very simple thing you can do, is take out all the words we, us, our. Again, no one cares about you at this moment in time. You want to take all those we, us's and ours and change it to yous and yours, because that is what the reader is reading. And people are attracted to the word you and your 10, 15 times more than the word us and we. It's obvious, really. It's, if you're that person at the party who only talks about yourself, no one cares about you. Everyone just thinks you're an idiot. But if you talk about the other person, that's where people get interested in you, right? So take all the we's, change them to yous. For salespeople specifically, all right, this is just for sales roles. The majority of roles I have worked on, when you see the adverts, they do not tell you a single thing about what's actually going in that role. When you do tell them about the role, these are some of the things that you want to add, because most adverts for salespeople say this: call customers, manage accounts, meet customers. No shit. Like, that doesn't tell that person anything. That's like someone on their CV going, met customers, managed accounts. Like, you'd be like, well, I need more information than that. Get specific. These are the specifics that you want to include in the job advert from a sales perspective. How many accounts they'll manage? What is the annual revenue of those accounts? What type of accounts are they? National accounts, key accounts, government accounts? What percentage of the role is new business versus account management? This is super, super important, because most adverts don't put this at all. Like, you want a sales hunter, someone who's done 90% new business, but you have a role that's called account manager. It doesn't tell you how much of it's new business versus account management. Job titles in sales do not describe the role accurately. You've got to tell people exactly what percentage of that role is new business, because if it's 90%, again, that's going to be a benefit for somebody. Some people want 90% new business. Other people don't want to go anywhere near 90% new business. So again, it's the bat signal in the sky. You're making it specific and you're putting it out there. 90% new business is a benefit for somebody. What channels they'll be generating new business from. So is it going to be face-to-face? Do you expect them to be cold calling? Is it through email? What are the channels for the new business? What are the products they're selling? Again, almost no advert I see says what products that they sell. That could be a huge benefit to somebody who's selling that product and really loves selling that product or wants to sell that product, but you don't put it on there. It's just a company name with no other additional information, if the company name's even on there. So what product they'll be selling? What's unique about that product and how that's going to benefit the salesperson? If you've got a market leading product that's really unique in the market, that's going to be a huge benefit for somebody wanting to join your business. It's going to make they'll be able to sell more product. So what's unique about your offering in the market? Is it price? Is it value? But what specifically is it? What sectors they'll be selling into? Again, the sector, if somebody's sold into healthcare their whole life, they're going to be wanting other roles that sell into healthcare. Again, most adverts don't put what sectors they're selling into. So if you're saying that it's healthcare, a lot of salespeople don't want to sell into healthcare. So you're going to cut those irrelevant applicants out. What channels they'll sell through? Is it straight directly to the end user? Is it through distribution, resellers, dealers? Again, could be a benefit for somebody. People who like selling through distribution, people who don't like selling through distribution. What geographical location they'll be covering. If it's a national role, or if it's a regional role, it's going to be a benefit, and it's going to be, again, it's not going to be a benefit for certain people. What the targets are in year one, what the average order value is, how long the sales cycle is. These are the specifics in the job that salespeople want to know, that almost no advert talks about. And all of these elements could be a benefit. Like I said earlier, everything about your job or company could be a benefit if you frame it as a benefit. It doesn't just have to be the money and the commission and the healthcare. It's the location. It could be the traveling, the amount of traveling that they do. If there's loads of it or none of it, then you could frame no traveling as a benefit, and you can frame loads of traveling as a benefit. So again, you have to think about all these parts of the role and what is the benefit to these people. One of the biggest benefits for salespeople specifically, the one that when I come across, I know I'm going to find good people for this, is creating a division or an area or a role from scratch, a brand new role from zero. Salespeople love that because they get to create something. It becomes their baby. So people generally love creation. So showing someone the benefits of creating something from scratch, you'll be able to do things your way with full autonomy. You'll be able to build your baby, create a legacy, something you're gonna then be able to use as you go on in your career and tell people that I built this from nothing. Or if you want to become a business owner one day, they're all the lifestyle benefits you get from that. You'll learn the skills that you need to become a business owner one day. And the evidence is that you're developing this brand new role from scratch into this new market. That's a huge benefit for somebody. But yeah, no adverts put these things in there. So everything is a benefit if you frame it as a benefit, but you can't be generic with it. You've got to frame it in the right possible way. What else can we say about the adverts? This is a huge one. Only when we work with a client, we see their advert, and usually, which is what everybody complains about, there's 10 to 20 listed requirements on there. Now, that's annoying when you're job searching, but you think it's completely okay when you're hiring, which is funny. The more requirements you put on there, the less likely people are going to apply, and you'll just get the spammers applying. Especially for women, there's lots of data out there which shows the more requirements there are on an advert, the less likely they are to apply to it because they feel like they're going to be rejected. Excuse me. When we work with a company, we only give them between 3 and 5 non-negotiable requirements. That's it. No more. A small part of it, because in any job, don't care what your job is, there's only 3 to 5 non-negotiable requirements. We've recruited MD roles for multinational FTSE listed businesses and companies, which are literally some guy in his shed, and every company and every role doesn't have more than 5 non-negotiables. If you do not include desirables in there, if they were that important, they'd be a non-negotiable. So get the desirables out, make them non-negotiables only. Okay, it doesn't read like a shopping list then either. You also want to think about the language that you're using. It can be broken up in 2 different ways: support language and demand language. Most adverts are written in demand language. Now imagine if I came up to you in real life and said, you must do this, you must do that, you must have this, you must have that. You'd be like, do one. I don't want to be spoken to like that. But that's almost how all the adverts are written. You must have this, you must have that. You don't want to write them that way. It puts people off. It feels like you're being spoken to like a child. It's subconscious. It doesn't make people want to apply. Instead, let's just say that the minimum requirement is that they have 5 years sales experience. Instead of putting you must have 5 years sales experience, you make it more done in a supportive language way, which is you'll be the type of person who's been loving working in sales for the last 5 years. Minimum. Okay. You're just making it more supportive and not as demanding. Like no one wants to be spoken to like that. Don't include things like you must have good communication. Everyone thinks they've got good communication. Don't include that you must have MS Office. Everyone knows MS Office. Like, make it specific to the job. Okay. Another super important thing we talked about earlier about the hook. The first 100-ish words are probably the most important part. If you can't hook somebody in at the beginning, they ain't going to read the rest. So if you have 95% of the advert is written beautifully, but the first 5% is crap, it's pointless. So the hook has to be the thing that gets them wanting to read in the first place. Now, how do you write a good hook? You want it linked to what you think is the biggest benefit of that job. So if we go back to the example I used about progression for that company, the hook that we had on there was something along the lines of, do you want to be the type of person who has full control over your life and a company by becoming an MD in the next 2 to 3 years? That was the hook. So somebody who wants that, they're going through all these adverts. Oh, MD in 2 to 3 years. I want control over a business. Bomb. What you don't want to start it with is what is so annoying. We are looking for an experience. Join our dynamic team. This is an exciting opportunity for a dynamic and... God, no one's reading past that. It's so dull. Okay. Like we said, these people, you're going to get really good people who are coming onto job boards for minutes. That's your moment. You've got to hook them. That's how you get qualified, good quality qualified people. It's by making it something that they actually want to apply to. It's not rocket science. It's obvious. It's the same thing we do for customers. You just got to make it attractive. Okay. So the hook is very important. Here's a couple of mistakes that companies do in this. We talked about salary before. If you don't include the salary on there, ignore everything else that I've said today, because it ain't going to work. You can have all the other great stuff, but if the salary is not on there, people just feel like it turns, you don't like it. You know, when you're applying for roles that you're not going to apply for a role that doesn't have that, most likely. You may do, but you're going to lose, God knows, 50, 60% of applicants. Salary, get specific with numbers. Bonus, how the bonus is paid out, what the salary is. Corporate jargon, avoid it. Like your internal corporate or industry jargon, they don't know what you're talking about. And then another thing is, relying on ChatGPT to write this for you. ChatGPT is not going to save you here. AI is not going to save you. The adverts conversion rates are going down even more since ChatGPT has been a thing. Why is that? Because now all you have is flooded job boards with the exact same adverts written in exactly the same way. If you give it bad inputs, it will chuck out bad outputs. ChatGPT gets its data from the internet. All it takes, all it understands, if you say write a good job advert for us, it will take all the existing adverts, which are all rubbish in the market, and create one based on those terrible adverts. That's what its data set is. So use ChatGPT, but you've got to coach it to think from the candidate's perspective. You've got to fill it full of benefits. You fill it full of benefits, emotional and lifestyle benefits, and all these specific things that we've spoken about. Then it could do it. But if you just say, here's our role, write an advert, it's going to write you a job description, and it's going to write it all about you and not about the job seeker at all. It doesn't know what a good job advert looks like. It hasn't been trained on it. Watch this space. We're working on creating one of those, but at the moment they're not any good. And then the last thing I want to cover is, if you don't do this last bit, then there's no point listening to anything I've said. Making it easy for them to apply. There should be 2 buttons: upload CV, submit CV. That's it. If you make someone go through a 40-minute to an hour application form, well, guess what? People aren't going to do it. Would you put one of your customers through an hour-long form before you've spoken to them? No. What would happen if you did? You would lose those customers quite quickly. Now, a lot of people will go, yeah, but we want to see who's really engaged, who really wants it. Well, you've got to give them a good reason to want it first. There's you and 10,000 other companies today who've posted the same advert. At the beginning, you've got to be the one giving to them, and you've got to make that process frictionless, like you would with a customer. Otherwise, you're just going to lose people. Good quality people, if someone's had a bad day at work and they're a real true sales hunter who's brought in millions and millions, that person's busy. They go on a job board. You might have minutes to get them, seconds sometimes. Boom, apply. Now I've got an hour-long application form to fill out. I just want to have a conversation with somebody. No, I can't be bothered. Blah, blah, blah. On to the next one. That's what will happen. And again, why is that in there? Because you're outsourcing your hiring process to people who are admin people. That is an admin thing to do, to make people fill in hour-long application forms. In a sales or marketing process, you wouldn't do that. Once they have applied, once they are through the door, once you've got their CV, once you've showed them why they should be part of your business, then you can take them through the next part of the funnel, which is the screening process. Then you can do those things: tests, presentations, interviews, application forms, yada, yada, yada. But initially, you need to fill that funnel up with more good quality people. The more good quality people you can fill the front of the funnel up with, the more people you're going to be able to choose from that interview process. If you've got only one or two potentials and the rest of them are just awful, you've got less people to choose from. It doesn't matter how good your screening process is after that. If you don't have the pool of people to at the front of the funnel, you're not going to have the choice. And this is why you have to use a recruiter. This is why you have to use people like us, because you aren't able to attract them. We are able to attract them. We've got the time and the skills and the process to do it. This here is just putting our process in your business. I know this 100% works because it's there's a multi-100 billion, almost $1 trillion industry built off the back of this process. It's called the recruitment industry. You just got to do the same thing for your own business, and it's not hard to do. You just got to write better words. Remember that your words that you write matter, and treat it like a sales or marketing process. Treat it like a customer acquisition process at the beginning. Once you've got them through the door, then it's a screening process after that. Then you can test them and what they can bring to the table. Smashed over my mic there. What they can bring to the table. So yeah, that's pretty much everything about job adverts. If you're somebody who doesn't know where to start with this, reach out. Happy to review any job adverts, happy to give any advice, happy to rewrite them. I'm genuinely passionate about this subject. I really think it's one of the biggest ROIs you can have in business. Just writing better words on a piece of paper is, to get much better quality of people in less time and not having to use a recruiter 60-70% of the time just by writing some better words. I mean, call me an idiot, call me insane, but that seems like it's worth the investment of just learning how to write things slightly better and just thinking about it from the candidate's perspective rather than your own, which is exactly what you do with a customer. You think about it from their perspective, not your own. You think about yourself. You can make them think about you later. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And this has been the You've Got Sales podcast, and we'll speak again soon. Thank you. Bye.